Okay, I'm recording it on video.
Oh, okay.
So you're in leadership school.
Uh, in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and I was out of approximately 500 advanced trainees. They picked 24 for leadership school, and I was one of them. And in leadership school, we basically had a corporal that was over us, and our routine was every morning we ran, so forth, and then we went to classes and different things, and then they would give you exercise and they would grade you. The first one was we was to make a 5-minute speech, and I never spoke to anyone standing up, and I was scared to death. And my speech was trucks and convoy. And we had a little pamphlet, military pamphlet on trucks and convoy and so forth. And I was trying to figure out what to do, and somebody said, what you need to do is have a blanket display. In other words, you take a army blanket and you put it on a stand or something, and you cut out little trucks and you stick to them. And he's the guy that was trying to help me. He said, by the time you do all that, you've taken up most of your 5 minutes. And then you can kind of say a little bit about trucks. Well, that sounded real good. I went out there, except it was outdoors, windy. I couldn't get the blanket up. It was a disaster. So I figured on that I got a 0. And
But you said this guy was going to make you got 4 haircuts. What was that about?
well, that was the first day. This corporal was over us, and he said, McDonald, you need a haircut. So I go up there and pay $1 for a haircut. I didn't really need one. I got a trim. Came back, he said, no, go get another haircut. I went up, got another haircut, come back. He said, no, go get another haircut. I did it only 3 times, really, not 4. I go back up and I just tell the guy, cut all my hair off. But I was the only one was having to go get a haircut. And so I enjoyed it. It was a group of people. All of us was kind of worked together, and they had. We was issued a carbine, which is very light. Wasn't issued any steel helmets, anything. And we went to class exercises and all of that. And they said, tomorrow morning, we're going on a forced march, 15 miles forced march. And they said, go over to the supply room, and we checked in our carbines for M1s. They issued us steel helmets and a backpack, which we had to put our shoes and all that in it. The forced march was we'd run, stop, walk, run, stop, walk, run, stop, walk, which wasn't too bad, but it was a long 15 miles or more, so pretty good.
Yeah.
We got out to this stage, and we didn't really know what was going to happen. We got out and they said, now we were going to break y'all up into 4 groups of 4, and you're going to be doing exercises, and you're going to be only graded when you in charge of an exercise, but you or to help the leader make a good grade, which this was not true. They was grading us constant. All right, first exercise we go out there, and it was a big long puddle of water, and they had some old boards on one side of the puddle, and they said to the boy that was in charge, they said, now you got to build a bridge over this water. And most of these boys in leadership school didn't have the slightest idea how to do anything. And he just stood around, and I helped him. We put together some boards, stood them up, and the only way we had to imagine that this big pool was a river. So we couldn't go across, couldn't go around it because it was a river. So we dropped the boards. Of course, when they fell, they broke. And then we went to another exercise. And every exercise, I basically ended up in charge of all the exercise because these guys just didn't seem to have any idea how to do anything. And when it came to mine, fortunately, I had a patrol in combat, which was really easy. All right. Now, what made it unusual, we had sea rations and canteen of water. All right, we coming down this road. It was kind of an open fields on both sides of, and out of the field comes this farmer guy, and not in uniform or anything, with old farm hat on and overalls, and cussing up a storm, hollering at us, I'm tired of you soldiers coming through my property. Out of the whole leadership school, I wasn't a leader, but I'm the one that I spoke quickly. I said, this is not true. I said, this has got to be all military land. And I hollered, let's get him. And I ran and tackled the guy, and the rest of us jumped on him. We tied him up and left him beside the road. And then I began to think, if he really was a farmer, I don't know what's going to happen to me, you know. Well, it turned out I'm the only one, our group was the only one that did it. And they had a couple of exercises and other exercises. But it ended up where they had said we're only judging the leader, they was judging everybody. In other words, they was judging you how well you interacted with the other soldiers. So I knew I did real well because I had seen how some of the others, I could hear what they was doing, So we had some other exercises, and then we came back one day and they said, we're going to do the physical test. And now I knew I had failed the presentation, and I didn't know how I was doing on anything else. So the physical was we had to run. It was a running, and I came in last in my group. It was broken down into groups of, I think, 4 or something. I came in last. So the next was set-ups, push-ups. And somewhere in the Army, somebody had told me to do push-ups, always hold my head up. And doing that, it puts a nerve on the back of your neck. So I didn't do good on push-ups. So the third and final exercise was sit-ups. And they had sergeants from somewhere. They wasn't from the leadership, part of the leadership, that was grading us. In other words, this is the only test where they had outside soldiers grading us. And a sit-up is you sit down and you put your knees up and you lay back on your back, and as you lift up, you touch your knees with your elbows, and then you go back down and you lift back up. And everything's done in a certain number of minutes. The soldier told me, he said, if you want to do real well, when you go to go back, just relax and fall back. And when you hit the ground, it'll kind of help bounce you up to touch your knees. Well, I followed what he said. And I think I did close to 80 sit-ups. And the sergeant said, "What?" And every time you fall, it was hurting, but I didn't feel it too much. Until later, all my back was real bruised, real bad. Because I completely relaxed, fall. And he said, "You did well." So the next morning when we go to get chow in the little small place where we ate, up on the rafters was a homemade sign that said, "Congratulations, McDonald, you had broken the sit-up record." It means nothing. But I was wondering, why was they congratulating me? Why didn't they congratulate all the people who won the running and the push-ups? And nothing was ever said about it. Later, much later, when we was getting ready to be shipped out, we was sitting around talking, and I don't know, it wasn't getting ready. We was talking about how we may have done. I said, I don't know if I'm going to get passed up, out of this class or not. I said, I think I did terrible on the little speech I was supposed to make. I said, I think I did real good in the field. And I said, I don't think I did too good on the exercise. They said, what? I said, I did okay on sit-ups, but bad on push-up. They said, what are you talking about? You didn't do it. He said, you broke the school record. I said, that's not a big deal. He said, it is. The school record I broke was one out of 4,274 students. That's a big deal. But I know what happened. These people, when they saw how small it was, they probably thought that I couldn't have done it. And they didn't, nobody ever came up and congratulated me. And I only figured that out about a week ago. I figured out how many students it was. In the leadership school, they had a